welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Bree, and today we're going to be doing a book haul. So at the beginning of the year, if you've been around, I made some goals, and one of them was to be on a book buying ban, and that was to save money, but also because I have a lot of books on my shelf that are unread, so I wanted to read through them more. And I'm gonna be honest, the book buying ban has not been going well. I have been really ill this year with my illness, and I've been trying to figure things out, and that just means sometimes I need some comfort of books. But that being said, I think I want to modify my book buying ban. So I think it overall, being so restrictive on the number of books I buy actually caused me to want to break it more, versus I've actually been looking at my actual statistics of how many books on my shelf I've read, and when I started at the beginning of the year, I had only read about 43% of my books, and now I'm already at 51% read. And so I've been getting rid of some books that I just know that I bought kind of on a whim, and that made me not actually want to read them. And then I also read through a lot of my books. If I read from the library, I've been purchasing the books that I actually really loved, so that means they go on my shelf and they're already read. So I think that this system has been working okay for me, and I want to amend my book buying ban to more of a goal to have, by the end of the year, read 55% of my books, because that would be just over 10% of an increase, and then just try to do it that way. That way I can still be buying books that I really, really loved and want to have on my shelves, but I'm a little more intentional about the books I bring in. And when I actually look at what I've bought this year compared to last year, I bought a lot more books from authors I've read before and really liked their books, anticipated releases, so authors I do really love as well. And then I don't have quite as many books just that I don't know anything about. So for this book haul, it is a big one, because I did go just a little more than I wanted, but I think that this new way of looking at my reading is going to be helpful. Primarily, that's like my hobby, is to buy books. I really enjoy doing that, going to the bookstore and doing that. So restricting it felt too harsh for me, but then also I go to like the thrift store and stuff like that more and more, and that's been how I get a lot of my books, and I really enjoy just like the hunt of finding the copy that I've been looking for when I haven't found it in a while. So all that to say is that I think that this will work out better for me. So I'm excited to talk to you about the books, and some of them I've read, some of them I haven't, but I've kind of divided them up into 3 categories. So I have my anticipated releases that I had put on my list at the beginning of the year, and then I have books that were on my TBR or were like a random purchase, but they were not like ones I had necessarily read before. And then I have books that I read the first or second book in a series and really enjoyed it and wanted to keep going in the series, or I read that author for the first time and really loved it, so I bought more of their books. So I think I'm gonna start with my anticipated releases and go through those, and then we'll get to more. Also, before we begin, if you want to leave a comment down below and let me know some of your anticipated releases for the year, I think it's really helpful, because sometimes you just don't know what books are coming out until you see videos like this or you see in the comments. So I think it's always really helpful, because a lot of books I didn't actually find out were releasing until I saw someone else talk about it. Although you can go on Goodreads, I sometimes don't know about certain books until they're talked about more, just because I don't necessarily follow every author that I love. So the first one I have is Warrior Girl Unearthed by Angeline Boulley. Angeline Boulley wrote The Firekeeper's Daughter, which I really, really loved. It was one of my top books of 2021. It was a YA mystery, but it was much more about this Anishinaabe community in, they're not in Marquette, but they're close to Marquette. They're in, I don't know, it's eluding me. But it was just a lot about this community and these struggles, but also the community that's there and how strong the bond between people can be. And so I really loved it. So this is following Perry, which is one of the twin nieces of the main protagonist in our first one. So I don't know too much about this, except for that I know there's going to be a heist situation, something about robbers, and there's going to be sister secrets and another mystery at the heart of it all. But I really didn't need to know anything to know that I was going to pick this up, because I just loved Firekeeper's Daughter. So I'm really happy I have this on my shelves. And then I picked up In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. TJ Klune, one of the things I love about him is he does like a quirky group of characters, found family element, and these like cozy vibes. So I'm really excited to get to this one because I think it's supposed to be really big with the found family elements. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be kind of reminiscent of Pinocchio, but I know there's like robots and stuff. So really, again, the anticipated releases, I don't really need to know much about them because I just like the author and I know that I'm going to pick up their next work. So I'm happy to have this one as well. Then I picked up House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, and this is a horror book about a haunted house, and I think it's supposed to dive into kind of a family's secrets and like things you keep hidden, and it says Southern hospitality to die for, so I think it's supposed to be in the South. I've heard good things about this so far. I've read a lot of T. Kingfisher's fantasy and really loved her fantasy, but I have only read one horror book so far. So this is a horror book, so I'm interested to see it, but I did really like the novella style, so I think that the novella style for T. Kingfisher horror is probably going to work well for me, and just horror in general. I find that I've really loved a lot of short horror, so there's that one. This one I read, and unfortunately it was not a big hit for me. It wasn't complete miss. I just feel like it was a middle of the road book for me, which is sad because it's a beautiful cover and I was very excited for it. That's Flowerheart by Catherine Bakewell. I'm trying to get away from buying anticipated releases or new books that I don't really know the author until I've heard some reviews or stuff like that, or check it out from the library first. So this is following Clara, and she kind of has this like wild magic that she has a really hard time controlling, and she is told by the like enclave of witches. They say that they're going to take her power away or bind it to her, which if you bind it to yourself, it's very painful to use your magic. So both are not good options, and they basically give her about a month to figure out either she has to control her magic or those things are going to happen. And then there's also like something happens with her dad and she's trying to help him. It's got a kind of like friends to, I wouldn't say enemies, but friends to like not speaking, whatever you'd call that, to lovers, like romance in here. And I think that it was a great like spring type thing. It's very light, fluffy. It has Studio Ghibli vibes, but for me, it just didn't go deep enough. It felt like everything was kind of surface level, and there were so many interesting things to explore that I wish were just gone into deeper. But that being said, I picked this one up and it was okay. Then the last anticipated release I have is Grady Hendrix' How to Sell a Haunted House. I have read A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires and loved it, and then I also read My Best Friend's Exorcism and loved it. I think the vampires, I just said it and now it's lost from my brain. That one is my favorite so far, and this one's following a haunted house, and I think it's two siblings trying to sell their haunted house. And I don't know if they know it's haunted, but they're trying to sell it, and then a lot of stuff starts happening. And this is like after the death of their parents. All I know is Grady Hendrix, I really like how he makes characters, and he also has a way of just like making you so angry at characters. I've never been so viscerally angry at characters in a book like I was in Vampires. Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I was literally like screaming at the book. My husband was like, I think you need to put it down for a little bit because I was that mad. So I just feel like he has a way to just like really grip me in his horror, and while it's scary, it's not overly, I don't know how to describe it. There's still like a campy feel to it that I really love and makes it more accessible for me as someone who doesn't read a ton of like really truly dark horror. So yeah, I have this one as well. So let's get the big one out of the way. I read the first 4 of these. First one I had owned for a while, and then the other 3 I rented from the library, and then I picked these up. So this is the, it's by Annalee Hubert. It's the Lady Darby Mystery Series. So I've read The Anatomist's Wife, Mortal Arts, Grave Matter, and A Study in Death. I don't own Mortal Arts or A Study in Death. I wanted to pick up the 3rd one and read it because I was really loving it. And then I saw Half Price Books. They literally had, I also have to say, I think I put 2 in here. These 2 I actually bought like last year, and I had just felt like I was going to like the series. And so these are actually 8 and 9. So I've just had those. So I really only bought these ones. So that's better, right? um, and they had all of them. They had literally all of these there for $6 a piece. So I had to get them because I've been really loving this series. It's not quite Rexford and Sloan for me, and I actually found a new historical mystery that I like even better than this one. But it's still really fun, and my sisters read 6 of them, and I got my mom to start reading them. So I'm waiting for them to catch up, and then we're gonna read through the rest of it. And there's 11 books, so it's just a fun thing we're gonna do, and I really do enjoy my historical mystery. So I think I have. So I have the 3rd book. I don't have the 4th. I have 5th, 6th. I think I'm missing like the 7th. Then I have 8, 9, and 10. And then the 11th book I think comes out later this year. I have a lot to read through, and these are ones that I like to read through pretty quickly, so they go really fast for me. But yeah, I'm just really excited to have these on my shelves because I know that I will get through them and really like them. So then I have these two. So it's The Dreadful Company and Grave Importance by Vivian Shaw. And this is the 2nd and 3rd to the Dr. Greta Helsing series. I read Strange Practice earlier this year and I liked it. I think it's a pretty good mystery. I wouldn't say I was blown away by the mystery side, but I did like the characters a lot. And it's one that, well, when I reviewed it, I didn't give it like glowing reviews. It's one that I just like can't stop thinking about and keep wanting to pick up the next one. It took me a long time because I've been hunting for this one for a while, and so I finally got it. So the series is about Greta Helsing, and she's a doctor for like the monsters of the world. So she like helps vampires, banshees, ghosts, all these kind of things, but they're not your typical monster. They are much more like soft and cozy in my opinion, and I really like it. It kind of sheds like a different light on it, and if you've ever seen the TV series Grimm, it reminds me a lot of that because she's also solving mysteries with this vampire, and there's like another person that she's known for a long time, and there's like 2 other people involved in the murder, and now they kind of become like a found family as well. So it had that element to it, which I'm a sucker for. So I'm really excited to continue the series because it is one that has really grown on me since I read it. It's just kind of like my kind of series. Like, give me a fantasy, really like an urban fantasy mystery or historical fantasy mystery, and I'm there. Like, I'm loving it. So I got those. So I listened to this one on audiobook and absolutely loved it. And I've been trying to dive more into sci-fi, and I really haven't found what I like in sci-fi. I know I'm not a big technology person, but I think that this was the perfect like cozy and cozy and funny, which I think really works for me. And they're novellas, so they're really quick. So that's All Systems Red by Martha Wells. And this is the 2nd, Artificial Condition. And these are a part of the Murderbot series. There's a lot out. I want to say there's like 6 out. I loved it. I loved it so much. I was laughing with the character. They were basically following Murderbot. They're an AI who basically take care of these humans on the ship, but they don't really want to be there. They'd rather just be watching their soaps, and basically when they shut down, they can just watch like soap operas all the time. And that's all they want to be doing. And then all of a sudden this mystery is happening. Some humans are getting killed and they have to figure it out and protect the humans. And it's just really fun. It's really good. I'm really enjoying being with Murderbot and everything, and I think they're a perfect length for what they are. I mean, I would take a full-length novel, and I think there is one later in the series, but they're just like, if you're wanting something quick and like easy and fun, it's these for sure. So yeah. And it has my favorite kind of thing, which is like an unconventional kind of found family. I cannot keep saying that I love found family, but it's so true, and I feel like all the books that I just keep picking up have that theme, and I'm not mad about it because it's literally my favorite trope. So then I have these two. So this is Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk and Witchmark by C.L. Polk. I had read A Midnight Bargain, which I had owned for a while, and I don't know why I never picked it up sooner. It's one of those books I put off and off for so long, and then it turned out to be a favorite book of the year so far. And so then after I read that, I knew I needed to read another one from them, so I picked up through the library the audiobook for Even Though I Knew the End. And this is a murder mystery historical fantasy, sort of. It's basically following this character, and she knows that she's about to die because she made a deal with a demon, and the next day is going to be her last day to live. And she gets wrapped up in this whole murder situation, and a lot more is like revealed about what's going on and her like sentence and stuff. And she also has a partner who she is like trying to like not let know and trying to enjoy her last days with her. And so it's good, really good, quick fantasy. I would say the audiobook I was a little confused, and so I do want to reread this just in physical form because I think I would love it even more. But I had such a good time, and I knew I had to get it right away. So if you like a sapphic historical fantasy mystery situation and you want something quick, I would highly recommend this. Now this is their other work, and this was actually their first ever work, and it's part of a series. This is following our main character, Dr. Miles Singer, and he works in this hospital that has taken a lot of veterans in after this war, and this is reminiscent of Edwardian England, and he is basically hiding his true identity and hiding that he has magic, because magic users are only allowed if you're like in this top elite like society, and anybody else who's found to have magic gets taken away to these asylums. But one day there's a guy rushes in with another guy who is very wounded, and the guy who's wounded ends up passing away, and things are unraveled. A mystery starts to form. I really love C.L. Polk's writing, and just the way they tell stories I really enjoy, even if this wasn't the strongest. So I had picked up this one right after I read this one. So I have those. Well, this one should have been on anticipated release, but I put it in the wrong pile. That's the Lady Sherlock series, A Tempest at Sea. I'm currently about 100 pages in, and so far I'm enjoying it. This is by Sherry Thomas, if I didn't say. And this is the 7th book in the Lady Sherlock series. And I can't really say much about this one just because it literally would give so many spoilers for the other books in the series. But basically, it's on a ship. That's all you need to know. The whole series itself is that what if Sherlock Holmes was a woman, and she is kind of cast out of her family for this event that happens, and she has to make it on her own, and she ends up finding a Miss Watson and becomes her like lady's companion, and then they start solving mysteries together and earning their own money, and it's really a good time. I think it's a series that grew on me the longer I read it, so I am happy to have this one, and I picked it up when it released, so it really should have been in the anticipated releases, but here we are. These ones I'm so excited about. So I have 10,000 Stitches and Long Shadow. So I read Half a Soul at the beginning of this year, and oh my god, one of my favorite books of the year so far. I absolutely fell in love with these characters, and in Half a Soul you're following Dora, who had an event with a fairy at the beginning of her life, like around 8 or something, and the fairy took half her soul, and so now she doesn't feel emotions the same way. She's neurodivergent coded, and the author herself is neurodivergent, and it was just an exploration into like being different. And then there's this whole romance, and there's much more of a plot in there too. There's like going to these like workhouses where a lot of people have to work and are barely making any money, and they're sick, and helping them in that situation. And there's fairy stuff, and it was just really good. I feel like people have described it as Bridgerton meets like fairies, and I would say that's pretty accurate, even though I haven't seen Bridgerton. It's got that like Regency romance feel with fairies and magic, and I loved it. So they are all companion books. So this one is following a maid, and she like accidentally makes a deal with a fairy, and she has to marry someone in 100 days, I believe, or she has to go back and be his maid forever. And I really enjoyed this one as well. Not quite as, it didn't have quite the same heart that I think Half a Soul did, because I think Half a Soul, it was just very obvious it was a very personal type of book to Olivia Atwater, and this one is just more fun and kind of more lighthearted than that one, but I did really enjoy it. And then this one's Long Shadow, and I think this is following someone from the first couple. I think it's maybe following their kids, or maybe it's following someone close to them. I don't really know. I just kind of go into these just not really knowing anything, but I end up loving them. So I'm really excited for this, and I will read this series for as long as she keeps writing them, because oh my gosh, I love Half a Soul so much, and this one was also 5 stars. So the last one in the stack is in a series that I recently read this year. I read the first one, and it's easily one of my favorite books this year, and it's a historical fantasy mystery. Are you shocked? So that's The Undertakers by Nicole Clever. I read The Conductors earlier this year, and we're following Hetty and Benji, and they have a marriage, and it's a marriage of convenience. This is right after the Civil War, and when slaves were not free, they were part of the Underground Railroad and they used their magic to help get people to safety. And now they live in Philadelphia, where a lot of people have gathered after freedom and they have this kind of community that they've come together with. So there's like that found family element. They use their magic now to help solve mysteries in the community. And they're well known to be kind of this like duo that helps people. And so at the beginning of this, there is someone killed that is a close friend of theirs, and they end up having to figure out what happened to him. And the magic system's really interesting in this. It's like with constellations. It was just really, really well done. So I can't wait to get to this. I literally don't know what this one is, but the way they wrap up felt like that one mystery was closed, and that we're probably getting like another mystery in here, which is like my favorite kind to read. And there might be some like overarching plot throughout it, but so far I'm just really enjoying it, and I want to pick this one up soon because I absolutely love it. I'm finding that I really like a sleuthing couple in my books, and I think that that's just like the perfect vibe for me. As long as I like the couple, I have to really like the couple, which I did in this one. So so this is an impulse purchase, which could prove to be not so good for me. But this is The Fairy Bargains of Prospect Hill by Rowena Miller, and I didn't know anything about it until I was at Barnes & Noble and I saw it, and it was next to The Monsters We Defy, which I read and really loved, and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which I read and really loved. So I saw this and I was like, well, if they're comparing the two, then I'm gonna like it. So this is supposed to be about there's fairies and humans can make deals with them, but the main girl's family has never made deals with the fairies because they can be really tricky and things like that. And I believe that the sister of this girl her husband is not who she thought she was, so she's determined to help her sister get away from him, and so that might mean making a deal with the fairies. And it kind of reminds me of Nettle and Bone, which is also what made me want to read it, because it's like this idea of a sister doing anything to help her sister get out of a bad situation is really appealing to me. So I'm excited to get to this one, and yes, it was an impulse purchase, but out of the stack, I really haven't had that many, so that's good. So I got Bindle Punk Bruja by Desideria Mesa. This is a fantasy kind of mystery type story. So it's set in 1920s, and I can't remember what city it's in. Kansas City? Yeah, Kansas City. The main character, Luna, who goes by Rose a lot of times, is a white passing Mexican immigrant, and her mom really pushes her to pass as white and wants her to basically be able to make a name for herself. And so she has to deal with her identity and how she is Mexican, but she's hiding it. And so there's like this idea that she's just kind of having to hide who she really is, and she struggles with that, along with she also has magic and she also has to hide that. So there's like multiple things she's hiding. But during the day, she's a reporter at a local newspaper. And then at night, she owns a club that she owns and runs herself. And basically, at the beginning, she is told to go report on these corrupt gangsters. And she goes and finds out that the actual one that she has to confront for her newspaper is the one who owns her shop. And this is also 1920s, so alcohol is illegal, so she's engaging in bootlegging. And they are basically trying to control her because they own her property, and they're trying to get her to work for them. And so she has to figure out what to do and kind of make a stand for herself. And I have started this. I'm on page 50, and so far I am enjoying it. Yeah, and like at the beginning it says hot jazz and cold drinks, all with some witchy charm. So yeah, I picked this one up. It had been on my TBR for a while, and I just hadn't picked it up. And then this one's also been one that I have wanted to read for a long time, and I decided to finally pick it up. And it's a cozy mystery called Under Lock and Skeleton Key by Gigi Pandian. And it's about this girl whose family is like a bunch of magicians, but I think they also build like secret passageways in people's houses. And all I know is that something's going to go wrong. She's going to find a body, and she's going to have to figure out what's going on. I just feel like this will be such an interesting mystery because I've tried cozy mysteries, but I haven't really tried anything with like a little bit of whimsy or magic to it. I've stuck to like contemporary type cozy mysteries. So I wanted to give this a try, and I've heard good reviews on it, so I thought I'd pick it up. Well, I have another one that was an anticipated release. Somehow got on the wrong stack. That's Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I really love Dial A for Aunties. and I haven't read the second one in that series, but I decided to pick this one up because this is about Vera, who owns a tea shop, and she ends up finding a dead body in her tea shop one day, and she decides she's going to solve the mystery. And this is a 5-star, one of my favorite books of the year as well. I absolutely love this. I like could not put it down while I was reading it. I didn't expect it to blow me away like it did. The mystery itself wasn't like overly complicated or something new and crazy, but the characters in this are really what sold it. Vera is someone who is kind of a know-it-all. She like is always giving people unsolicited advice and all that, but she ends up coming into contact with a lot of people who are involved with Marshall, the man who died, and just getting to understand them and solving this mystery and things. And it's got the found family, which, you know, I love. It made me cry at one point. It's just, it has everything that I could have wanted in like a cozy, fun mystery. It's not quite as like crazy as Finley Donovan or Dial A Ferrante's. It doesn't have that like over the top craziness, but it has so much charm. And there is like funny elements to this. I was laughing out loud at parts. It's just not quite like unhinged as the other ones. It's just more fun, and I really, really loved it. So I'm really happy I picked this one up. So another one I've had on my radar for a long time, and I ended up finding it finally at Half Price Books, and so I ended up picking it up, is Opium and Absinthe by Lydia King. I like to get my historical mysteries at half price or from the library if I can, because they're hit or miss for me, and this was an example of something that started off so strong. The first half I absolutely loved, and then kind of lost me in the middle, and then the end I did enjoy. And it's set in 1899 in New York, and our main character Tilly, at the beginning of the book, her sister ends up dead, and they find her, and she's been very brutally murdered, and it looks like a vampire killing, like all her blood has been taken out of her body. And so Tilly is trying to figure out what happened to her sister, but she also had fallen from a horse, and so she is given laudanum to help, and it just coincides that that's when she finds out her sister has died. And so it's a lot about addiction and like the struggles of it. So a lot of the book is Tilly really struggling with his addiction and also trying to figure out what happened to her sister, but it's got like a fever dream kind of quality to it because she's not always really present with the story, and there's some romance and things like that in here. So overall, I think that it just was a little slow in the middle because it was a lot of just her like dealing with her grief and really not dealing with her grief, and so it was very heavy. So I expected more of like a mystery, and I think more you get a look into Tilly's character and things like that, and it was good, but it wasn't my favorite. So then I picked up from Half Price The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I have read Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I did not enjoy it. It was noir, and it was not my cup of tea. I'm just not a noir girly. I have Mexican Gothic, which I've heard is similar to the Hacienda, so I'm excited for that one. But I thought that this one would be up my alley because it's supposed to be like historical, but also fantasy, and just kind of like a romance with like some weird elements to it. I think following a girl who her sister brings a guy who, and the guy's in love with her sister, but she falls in love with the guy. So I think it's supposed to be messy, and I've just heard people read this and like give like glowing reviews, and every time people have pitched it, I've just felt like this is going to be one that I'm going to enjoy. So I picked this one up. So this one is one that I have had on my radar for a little bit, and recently I feel like more people have been reading it, and it just got me even more excited for it. And that is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This has been out for a really long time. This is a kind of like, I guess you would call it sci-fi, because it's like a time travel story. And so we're following our main protagonist who's in present day, and she keeps getting sucked back to a plantation where she has to save this boy from being killed, and it's different parts of his life. So she's like following as he's growing up, and she keeps getting sucked back, but she never knows when she's going to be sucked back and she's going to have to save him. And then I don't think she knows how to get back to her normal time, and in her normal time she's married, and so it's her and her husband like having to deal with like her just being gone. And I think she's only gone for like small portions of time, but still like so much changes from her going back and forth. And I've just heard this is like a really amazing story, and I like that like time travel element, so I just feel like this is gonna be something I'm gonna really love. Then I have one that's been super hyped up, and I really bought it for the hype because I just need to understand why everyone loves it, and I do love video games, so hopefully I will love it too. That's Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. It's following two probably don't even need me to pitch this to you, but it's about two people who, as children, meet in a hospital. After the boy, he's had an accident, and then the girl is like visiting her sister, and they become friends. And then I think it's throughout their life, and they build a video game together, and it's about like the different stages of their life and friendship and maybe love and things like that. I've been trying not to spoil myself too much for it, but I've heard it's heartbreaking. There's also chronic pain representation, so I am excited to read it and find out, because I haven't really read a lot of like chronic pain representation in books, except for ones that are horror, and I'm not going there. So I'm excited to see it in like a literary fiction sense, and I think I'm going to probably cry, but I do want to get to this and just see why everyone loves it so much. Also, like, I know everyone says this, but this cover, I mean, it's beautiful. Okay, I have two more. So this one was an impulse purchase as well, but that's The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Perry. This, though, I saw and I just felt like it was going to be a book for me. It's about a girl who was rescued by this wizard, and she's on this island, and she's told that she can't leave because it's literally surrounded by water. And so her savior, he leaves because he can turn into a bird. So he like goes to the mainland to like get them stuff they need, and then he comes back. So she's never left this island, and as far as she knows, it's really dangerous outside of there. And then one day he never comes back, and so she has to try to get off this island and figure out what's happened to him, and just kind of, I think she starts to learn a lot about the truth of what's out there. It says, off the coast of Ireland sits a legendary island hidden by magic, a place of ruins and ancient trees, sea salt air, and very lore. High Brazel is the only home Biddy has ever known. I mean, like, those few sentences sold me when I was reading in the store. So then the final book I got is called Marvelous Light by Freya Marsk, and this is a gay, like, fantasy historical romance. Am I right? I don't know about the fantasy, but I think it's fantasy. Yeah, historical fantasy. Literally says it right there. So I had to pick it up because I felt like I've been wanting something that gives me like kind of similar vibes to Half a Soul or things like that. Like I've also read Emily Wild's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is like a historical fantasy romance. So I thought I'd give this a try because I've heard really good things, and it's also a series. If I enjoy it, I can continue on. But I really don't know anything else about it except for that it's a historical fantasy gay romance, and sign me up. So yeah, so those are all the books that I have. I'm not going to try to hold them up because they would fall over. I hope you enjoyed, and I really appreciate you watching. I want to just thank everyone who is here and who watches my videos and just comments and stuff. I really appreciate it. So I really hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.